edition of Marilyn Robinson's Gilead, and I just noticed that Jerram Bars is recommending that for the reading list and says that he requires that for pastoral theology. It's the best book that he knows that describes the work and life of a pastor. I also refer to that book in Calvin because the pastor that she is describing in her book, and with an illness, heart condition, he's trying to write things that his little son can read when he's gone. But he was in his office one day, and he felt like dancing. So he got up and thought he would dance around his office a bit, but he said, if I fall over, though, I want to have a book in my hands that got to say something about who I am. And so he looked at different books. He looked at John Donne, looked at Karl Barth, but he took out volume 2 of Calvin's Institutes, and he was going to dance with that. He said, not to neglect volume 1, of course, but he took volume 2 of the McNeil's Battles edition of Calvin's Institutes and danced around the room. So when I teach the class, when we finish volume 1, we always dance. Everybody holds up their institutes, and we have a little dance to celebrate that we've gotten through volume 1. So, favorite books. I love the Divine Comedy, Dante, reading that through again in a newer translation. Confessions of St. Augustine. There's nothing quite like it. I don't know how many times I've read that. I've just read it through again. And I'm stunned with what I read there and how perceptive and how wise and how honest Augustine was in thinking back over the first part of his life up to the time of his conversion and describing all of that so beautifully and so theologically accurately. I'm reading, rereading. I'm really in a process now of rereading more than reading. I read new things, but I'm rereading quite a bit. I'm rereading C.S. Lewis's Science Trilogy. I read through those books 20 years ago or so, and been very much into the Chronicles of Narnia with my children. Love those stories. Read Lewis's Science Trilogy, and a little bit disappointed. It seemed odd to me. But you know, reading these same 3 books 20 years later, I have a much better idea what he's up to. And that's something about a great book. You can reread it, and it tells you not only what the author is saying, but it tells you a lot about where you've been and how far you've come and where you are now in your life, because we don't stay the same. The words on the page are the same, but I process those words with fuller information and appreciation, and I'll keep doing that. I want to reread Tolkien, reread more of Lewis. In the Christianity and Imagination class, we'll get into some poetry. George Herbert, I would think, still perhaps my favorite poet. John Donne, very important. Czesław Miłosz, the modern Polish poet. T.S. Eliot, some of his writings. Even John Updike and some of his. So a lot of great stuff out there. One way I try to keep up with this is to subscribe to the New York Times book review. That comes once a week through the mail, and I can read the reviews, and that helps me to know what's out there that may be sometimes Christian, usually not. But I like to know what's going on in the general culture. The periodical called Books and Culture, published by Christianity Today, is my other essential reading for reviews of any books, sometimes many non-Christian books, but Christian books too, but from a Christian perspective. So by reading New York Times every week and Books and Culture when it comes out every other month, I was a subscriber to that from the first issue, so I have them all. That helps me to know what to read and what not to read. I can sometimes tell by a review, not interested in this. There was one of the really fine books I read last year was Bonhoeffer by Eric Metaxas, and I had seen that advertised in Books and Culture. No, it was in the New York Times, actually. New York Times book review had a fourth of a page advertisement for Bonhoeffer, and read that on a Sunday. I thought, I certainly want to read this book. And so I planned, when I came over here Monday, to order it through the bookstore, but went down to my mailbox, and there was a big fat package in my mailbox. And I opened it, and it was this book, Bonhoeffer by Eric Metaxas. Turned inside, and in the inside, the author had written, "To David, God bless you, Eric Metaxas." I didn't know this man. I'd never heard of him until the day before. But I wanted to read the book. Here was the book, and even inscribed by the author. I later discovered that a Covenant graduate who is a pastor of a church in the Hamptons, PCA church under Redeemer Presbyterian, New York City, in the Hamptons, was a friend of Eric Metaxas, and he got the book for me and got Eric to sign it and mailed it on. So that was quite an interesting experience to get a book that I wanted that quickly and that easily.